We're going 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to Cultivated Live for Monday, November 10th. I am Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Cultivated. Over a couple is Jeremy Burke. He's my co-founder, but also our editor-in-chief. And in the middle is Mike Gorenstein. He's the chairman and CEO of Cronos. We try to check in with him. I guess it's now every quarter. We check in with Mike. He's always sitting in front of a brick wall, but I actually think sometimes he's in a different location, but he insists. This is how consistent he is. He insists that he's in front of a brick wall every time we talk. Mike, welcome.
Thank you. This will be, I don't think I'll be in a brick wall going forward. So I'll be in front of a white wall next time.
White wall, brick wall. It's very seasonal for you. So congratulations on your consistency. Hat backwards this time. I see what's going on. Mike, you guys,
back.
It's good. The spinach logo. Mike, give us a snapshot of what the earnings said, and then we'll sort of dive into some specifics. That sound good?
Yeah, it sounds great. No, I think, really good quarter. I think that company is making great progress. A lot of kind of the stage we've been at this year, there's been bottom line optimization. I think that still that we're waiting for GrowCo supply coming online. We did finish the expansion, started getting flower out. It's got to work its way, I think, through the system into the market. So sort of end of Q4, beginning Q1s, where you sort of see the step change. But I think this quarter really showed the strength we have in Israel. Things are going well. Patient growth resumed there for the first time in over a year, which is really nice to see. And then Canada, I think, again, we have flower shortages just until we get more capacity, but still did really well with edibles, with vapes, where you're not really capacity constrained. So I think we're in a good place. We're pretty happy, and we're really optimistic for next year.
Go ahead, Jer.
No, go ahead, Jay. I
was going to say, I mean, you talk about Israel and Canada, and it seems to me, certainly in the earnings, that there's high sort of revenue or high profit on projects in Israel for sure. How do you balance those high growth markets with high margins, with lower margin markets, assuming in Canada? How do you balance those things, and where to decide where to invest and scale first, second, and third, given that sort of balance?
Yeah, so I've always, and we talked about this before, we have this concept, we think of it our strategy is borderless products, right? And the idea has always been that you use Canada as a base to develop the products, to just kind of refine your offering and learn how to operate, because it was the first market. And then, you take that, and as other markets open, you spread to those markets. And I think, your investment's going to kind of be similar anywhere to develop the products, to build out, the initial brand portfolio. And then it's really about how you're going to market and when somewhere opens. So the success we have in Israel, we wouldn't have that success if we hadn't made the investments in Canada. And same thing with Germany or the UK and any other markets that open. And really it's like a proxy. Instead of waiting for the US to be legal to start developing everything, you get a 10-year head start where you can develop, all your products, and then you're ready to go and be competitive. Because to me, what makes you win in a market is having the best products. And, obviously there's other things that go into blocking and tackling and getting it out, but that's sort of how we think about it. It's, you still need some scale, absorption of fixed costs. It can't just be sort of like a theory in a pitch deck. You've got to be able to interact with consumers, get constant feedback, keep tweaking things. So, and of course, we don't look at Canada's a place we're just going to lose money. It needs to be, profitable. But I think that you're going to get outsized returns in markets outside of Canada. And I think you're seeing that when you look across the market. I think for the most part, profitable LPs are making their money outside of Canada, and Canada absorbs the fixed costs.
Mike, on that Canada front, I want to talk a little politics. The Canadian budget came out this week. I know that the industry had hoped to see some things in there, the excise tax stamp reform, just a little more federal government support for Canadian cannabis exports. Was it disappointing to see the budget from your perspective? And how does the industry kind of move forward advocating with Carney and the Liberals?
Move forward advocating, or just move forward? Because to me,
well, yeah, I guess move forward in general. Yeah, fair enough.
I guess I've been doing this pretty long, and I think I just don't rely or expect the Canadian government to support the industry is the honest answer. I think that unfortunately what's probably going to take is, and while advocacy is something we still lean into and we still try, I think it's going to take a lot of job losses and a lot of pain until people are outraged enough that they feel it. And I think they still think as long as you've got maybe the most public bellwethers appearing to telling people that things are going well, they just leave it. So it would have been nice. I think that if you think about all the things that Carney was saying about wanting to cut red tape and provincial barriers,
right?
Bill, like everything he said, the answer should have been let's make cannabis something that we have a strength in, especially if it's versus the U.S. where you've got a small window to try to build some type of moat or advantage before things get legalized in the U.S. And this was just nothing at all. In fact, actually, I think if anything, they made it worse. I mean, it only affects a few companies, doesn't affect us, but like the veteran pricing change, like it went the opposite way. And there's some that are so easy to do. Like the tax stamp is the one that I'm the most frustrated about, just because it'll save the government, money. It saves producers a ton of money. Right. It's not that hard. We've had QR codes is not like a revolutionary, concept. Just put a QR code in packages, make it all digital. So much easier to keep records. But no, I think as the industry, everyone will gather and will push. But I think that if it doesn't become like a strong voting issue, and I think if companies and employees don't remember, then it's not going to change. So it's something that we have to just keep rallying together and be louder.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I think we talked about it last time when we spoke as well. And you said something brilliant, which I can't remember, but it was really, you can't build your business. You can't build your business waiting for reform, right? You go, I mean, this is Donald Rumsfeld. You go to war with the army you have, not the army you wish you had. And I want to sort of talk about that. Like, how do you build that into a business? Sort of unknown is out there. The known is today, the unknown is out there, but you don't know if it's going to change a year, 2 years, 10 years, or never. Like, how do you build, this is more of a sort of MBA question. How do you build that resilience into a business that is constantly growing? You want to change and innovate, like new markets are opening. Like, how do you build that sort of resilience and stick-to-itiveness, I guess, into a workforce that's big?
Well, look, I think you talk to people in the industry. I don't know if I can be described as like pragmatic or as pessimistic. It's one or the other. But what I basically tell everyone is like, I don't expect things are going to change in any specific market. I think big picture, I do expect things to change. That's why we're here, is for the opportunity that comes. But you have to assume it will always get pushed out or will always get delayed. And the reality is, everyone in the market, maybe everyone should be dealing with the rules we have. Maybe not everyone follows them, but the reality is that every company has to deal with the same thing. And, you can't make an excuse. I think you just have to deal with what you have. And then it's really about building optionality and how you structure the business, how you think about things, how you invest. We've been, I think, very, very careful with how we've deployed capital, not trying to get ahead of things before we know that they're going to happen. The whole company structure and strategy is really about optionality, and this will sound very like financy, but if you think about like an option and how an option is valued, and then you think about volatility, the higher the volatility, the more value an option has, right? Especially when you think about how long it goes out. And so if you think about how volatile regs are here, right, then it kind of explains why you want to have all these options. And if you go back historically at the company, you look when everyone was buying, retail, and we didn't know what the retail regs were. And the retail regs were, you can't vertically integrate, you can't buy something. You had, companies for like $300 million buying, like, it was like Tokyo Smoke and Nova. And right, our approach is like, we're going to do a joint venture. We're going to put up like $100,000. We got the JV with MedMen back then, because we didn't know we needed optionality. Australia, we did the same thing. And so in any of these places, you just want to GrowCo. We didn't want to have, we knew that having like a giant scaled greenhouse and like big ag experience is important, but when we were doing it, I didn't know what demand would be early on. And I knew that if we built, and this is what happened in a lot of companies, they built this giant facility and then they had to push all the
Right.
product out. It's like, we're going to structure it so that others can buy from it, and we will have rights. We'll have some amount of control. We can push our genetics out, but we can buy from it, right, as the market grows, so we can ease into it. And it's really important to factor in, you're going to have price compression, you're going to have regulatory hiccups, you're going to have to change things. Any processes you have, you can't be too rigid, and you have to wait to make sure there's certainty there. Because if there's anything we've learned is, like, while you may not have like the exact progress that you want any given year, you will have change every year.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to adapt to it. So it's just sort of, ingrained in our DNA. I think we're all used to fire drills. It's like, we don't even panic anymore. We're like, all right, this is the new, we build into scheduling knowing, hey, you have to be ready for everything to change, and we got to be able to shift. So,
well, Mike, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I think I saw you speak in 2017, maybe 2018, early 2018, on a panel in downtown Toronto, right? There was 4 or 5 CEOs there. They all spoke. All of the others that are not you, not named Mike Gorenstein, are all long gone. Do you look back on those days and maybe even those panels that you were on and conversations and say, God, they got it so fucking wrong? Like, do you think that, or did they get it right from their perspective? They were trying to sell stock and get out of the game, not build a business for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, I guess, who made the most money, then they were right. If you look at like business and like longevity and how shareholders did, I always look at it as like, I think of us, like, I think like a private company. I think about like, what is the actual value of the business, not where is the stock price? Because
Right.
especially in this industry, the two are not yet.
Right.
Eventually they will converge, but they have not yet. So sorry, I thought I'd
Okay.
move the phone. So yeah, look, I think that you try not to like assume that's what all of them were doing, but it was pretty clear it's what a lot of them were doing. And if you listen to me on panels, I was pretty clear that I thought all of them were wrong. I'd give a reason and was like, but I don't know if we had the same objectives. I've always thought, like, I think back then I was still living in I don't think I'd had a full like lease for years, right? So it didn't really matter. I think building a business, there's a lot of other rewarding things about it. You have a lot of stakeholders, and you want to build it so that the people who left their jobs and took a chance on on Cronos and on the industry, like, you want to reward that that chance they took and do everything that you can. And I still think that there's a lot of promise for the industry, but again, like, we didn't want to rush into any of the markets. When you hear a news clip, there's so much politics around it that
Right.
you have to outlast it.
Well, and we're actually seeing in the US, and this is specifically the US, but like, we've seen big-ish public companies pull out of markets. Like, we just saw, I think Planet 13 just pulled out of California. We see every day, I think it was MariMed pulled out of Maryland. Like,
Missouri. Yeah.
Missouri. Sorry. Missouri. Yeah. Like, it really is. It happens. It's happening in the States now, right? I guess is my point, right? Like, that's too big expansion, maybe not the great sort of foresight of what is about to happen, and uncertain regulatory environment, uncertain politics, unproven market. Fools rush in, I guess, is the motto, right?
Yeah. Look, there's a world where if you keep making those types of bets, one of them will be right, where you invest ahead of a market, but it's really difficult to know that you're going to be right if you invest expecting some change to happen. And so it's a pretty difficult decision to make. You're taking a huge gamble, and the expected return is pretty negative. So, that's part of when I think about, like, okay, and we've talked about this for years, where I was like, I don't think the MSO structure is something that would make sense for us. I think it's hard to bet on, because you're betting on this kind of like interim. And I think people are starting to see it now and are like, and ironically, like, now everyone's asking, so like, MSOs are cheaper, are you going to go buy one? I'm like, well, I've been telling you this whole time. So some of them will do really well by like picking an area and focusing or pivoting, but it's hard when you don't know, is there going to be a 3-tier regulation? Is it going to be a, state by state model? Is it going to be state by state versus hemp? And you have something that's democratized distribution versus kind of the sort of harder to access licensed stores. Are you going to have a beer model, a tobacco model? So there's pharmacy distributions. There's all these questions, and where I always came back to is I'm not going to be able to predict that. I have ideas. I always thought it would be something that is democratized distribution, but rather than going and buying some it's like, do I go buy a beer company or a food company or like any of those, or because the idea is you want to have distribution and manufacturing access. And it's like, well, instead of buying one, I'll, like the partnership with Altria, like we would have access to distribute those, and we have a place where we can manufacture between, Mucci, which is owned by Cox, and they have, it's the biggest ag company in North America, or Altria, that obviously is a network of farmers. We have places where we can immediately get, supply. We can give genetics. We can grow everything out. You don't have to own everything. You don't have to buy everything. But having the best products is ultimately what I think would win out. And in any of those cases, we have the flexibility where we can pull the lever and be ready. But if something doesn't happen, we're not burning through cash and kind of eroding the value of what we've invested in, kind of what we've built on a bet. And Germany is another good example. Everyone's kind of was waiting for us to buy something in Germany, or for anyone to do anything in Germany. You're like, like I was there in May and everyone was saying these things. I was like, it feels like things here are probably going to change pretty quickly. Like, but we have great products, so we'll ship product here. And I don't want to put boots on the ground so I know what the regulations are going to be. And now Q1, we're facing a potential big change that could be very disruptive to, anyone who had a fixed investment. And so I think really just, it's just focusing on a thing. And for others, that could be completely different what they focus on. But for us, that's why we focused on products, the idea of borderless products. And no matter what the market looks like, we can move in and we can succeed. And I think when you compare Israel to Canada, and there's such different systems in so many ways, and, we're successful in both, it just comes down to the products.
Mike, I think you touched on a really interesting point that I guess, in business and in life, hindsight can make anyone look like a genius, right? Like we could have all bought and held Bitcoin in 2011, but you didn't know that in 2011. As the CEO, you're probably confronted with a lot of decisions every single day. How do you not chase shiny objects? How do you focus on being diligent with your decision making?
Yeah, I think you have to sit there, like you have to mull it out. You have to be pretty relentless about questioning what can, and it's not just what can go wrong. You also have to ask what can go right, because, you need to figure out what's the most likely outcome. But I think it's not just making the decision, it's building in sort of a optionality, and what do you do in each of these cases? So you have to think, if this happens, then how are you going to react? What are you going to do? You also have to think about how it affects everything else you're doing. How does it affect, the focus that the company has? How does it play to your strengths? What advantage do we have? And you have to assume that just about any of these opportunities, unless you're being really creative and you see something before others do, which can certainly happen, it's all competitive. So you're like, what is it about us, or what advantage do we have that I can do it better than someone else? So it makes sense for us to go into it. And if you can't answer it a lot of times, then you might be making the wrong decision. And I think that's an important thing. Like, there's a reason that you don't have Pepsi going into alcohol, you have alcohol going into soda. Like, what about DNA makes them better or worse? And if you follow that, I think you tend to stay on track and, and do well. And then I think the other is just like, you have to be able to see a return. Like when we were talking, before we started about all the grow facilities, if you can't understand how you will make money doing something, chances are you're not going to make money doing it. And you just have to say no. And be like, and there's a lot of pressure to do things. People want you to do deals. People want to see action, but operating is, it's hard work. It's not as exciting to, people on the outside, but that's kind of the answer. And then there will be deals you can do. We do deals, but you have to make sure it works. You have to make sure it fits. And you have to think about when objects don't stay shiny for long. So when the object's not shiny, is it an object that is, makes what you have shiny, or, is it just going to be another object in a graveyard?
Yeah. This has been a Monday morning MBA from Mike Gorenstein. This is really something. This is really good. We're gonna package these up into a course, a cannabis business course.
That's right. Yeah.
Sell it through whatever it is, Green Market. Mike, I appreciate it. Always connecting with you, hearing about the business, but also getting, I think, broader perspective of sort of how you view the cannabis world, and not for the past 15 minutes, but for the past sort of 10 years. It's good to have some longevity beyond the past couple of months. So I appreciate the time. And next time, I think we're going to catch you in summer Mike mode.
That's right. Yeah, it's cold outside right now. It'll be warm.
It probably doesn't own a jacket. Mike, appreciate the time this Monday. We'll connect with you probably 3 months hence. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Mike.